There's a quote from Dan Sullivan where he says that the only way to make your present better is by making your future bigger. And there's a phenomenal book on the subject called The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. And basically what Grant Cardone talks about in the 10X Rule is that, and he's speaking of himself, he says that the fundamental initial problem that he had as, someone in his 20s, 30s, and even into his 40s was not that he worked hard. He worked really hard. The problem was that his vision was too small, so he was working hard towards essentially average goals. And whatever vision you have that you're working towards, you could put 1,000,000% energy towards that goal, and you're going to get that. If you up your goal by 10x, your efforts will be multiplied, even though they're the same level of efforts, the same level of learning. Ultimately, right now, you're putting learning, effort, energy, your daily time, your day-by-day process is towards a certain vision that you have towards your future self. In psychology, they call that prospection, that whatever view you hold of your future self is the driver of your current behavior, attitudes, mindset, process. So it's kind of like the student who's just working to get into a regular college versus the student working to get into an Ivy League college. Ultimately, they're both spending their days, their 24-hour periods of time, working towards a certain vision of their future. And whatever goal you have determines your process. Now, the question that is regularly asked is, how do I actually even begin to imagine 10x? I don't even know how to think that high because I'm already exhausted and working hard at what I'm doing, and so I can't even begin to imagine 10x. And that's a really brilliant question, and it forces you to ask yourself a few other questions. One of the things I love that Dan Sullivan teaches is the idea that 10x is easier than 2x. Now, there's a few reasons why 10x thinking is easier than 2x. One of the reasons is that if you were to take a goal and then make it 10x bigger, what that would force you to do is it would force you to ask, is this the thing you really want to 10x? Because if you're going to 10x something, it's going to force you to probably quit doing a lot of the other things you're doing. Because you can't 10x everything. and so you have to ask yourself, where do I really want to go big? And so just choose any area of your life. Let's just say you have 4 main areas. You may have your career, your family, your health, or you may even have niches within your career. As an example, like for me, I write books, but I also, make YouTube videos and I also have a coaching program. And so if I were to ask myself, what do I want to 10x? Let's just say I want to 10x as an author. If I truly want to 10x as an author, meaning either I write 10 times more books or I sell 10 times as many books as I'm currently writing, or maybe I write a 10 times better book. There's a lot of different aspects of 10x. You've got to ask yourself, what's the most important metric for you? For me, is it writing 10 times more books? Is it selling 10 times more books? Or is it writing one book that's 10 times better than anything I've ever written? But if I just decide, let's just call it that books and being an author and writing is the area that I want to get 10 times better, and I'm really committed to going 10 times in that area, what that would force me to ask myself is, okay, then what else am I currently doing right now that's getting in the way of me going 10x? What am I going to have to immediately quit doing if I'm serious about going higher at this? Because if you're going to take on one goal at 10x, that means you've got to let go of other things. And when it comes to being a business, rather than trying to take five products really, really great to the market, you just take one. You just really niche down. You actually focus on like what's the one thing that would make the biggest difference. And once you get up there, you can pull other things up. You can laterally adjust, and you can do some lateral thinking at every step you take up. So as an example, before Apple jumped into phones, they mastered MP3. They really dialed in iPods. And once iPods blew up, and obviously before that even it was computers, but iPods really put Apple on the map. And then they could easily lateral that to phones and then iPads. But in the beginning it was iPods. And so yes, you can go lateral as you go up, but they were applying the same principles. So they didn't try to do iPods, phones, and iPads at the same time. They did one really brilliantly, and then they went lateral from there. So I'm not saying you can't do multiple things, but I'm just asking you, if you were to go 10x in one, what would that immediately require you to let go of? And why this is such a good question is it forces you to actually evaluate your own value system. What do you value more than the other things you're doing? This then brings up a brilliant question from Robert Brault. Robert Brault says, we're kept from our goal not by obstacles, but by a clear path to a lesser goal. So it's not obstacles between you and your future self that are stopping you. It's actually that you have clear paths to lesser future selves. It's that you're still overly committed to lesser goals. You're caught in the thick of thin things. You're undecided. You're uncommitted. You're still committing to too many things, keeping too many doors open, having too many foots in too many doors. Barry Schwartz, the psychologist, would call this the paradox of choice. That it's hard to make a committed decision because with committed decisions comes opportunity cost. You have to actually say no to other sides of yourself. One question you have to ask yourself if you want to go 10x or even begin to envision 10x is, what's the area of your life that's worth 10xing? You can go 10x in multiple areas of your life, but I would invite you to just choose one at a time. Which area is the most important for you to 10x right now? It's kind of like the parable of bird and ass, or like the donkey, where the donkey is between a bundle of hay and a pail of water, and because it's trying to get both at once, and ultimately it ends up dying of starvation and thirst, and if it would have just gone to the hay first, boom, knocked that out, and then gone and drank the water, or vice versa, it could have had both. But if you're trying to do all at once, and this is a problem that a lot of people like in their 20s and 30s have, is they're trying to accomplish too many goals all at once rather than really going deep and far in one, and then beginning from a higher level of leverage to lateral over. They're trying to do too many things at once, and they've got too many lesser goals, too many competing priorities. So number one, what's the thing to 10x? And if you were to 10x that, would you be willing to let go of some of the other things you're doing to really go big on that one? And if that's the case, yes, that's awesome. That creates more focus, which obviously makes it easier. The other reason why 10x is easier than 2x is because if you were to really 10x a goal, it would force you to pretty much adjust everything you're doing. Your process would fundamentally change because the goal shapes the process. Whereas if you're only going 2x, you're very tempted to continue doing as much as possible of what you're already doing. In other words, you're committed to your past, whereas with 10x, you're committed to your future. With 2x, you're committed to your past. With 10x, you're committed to your future. If you commit to your future, then you've got to change what you were doing in your past. What got you here won't get you there. Whereas if you just go 2x, it's pretty much how much of my past can I bring with me? How much of my old process can I keep with me? How much of what I was priorly doing can I still keep doing? That is bad for the brain. It's bad for growth, and it plateaus your progress. 10x is easier as well because bigger goals are more motivating. Now, it's important to realize that having a big vision doesn't mean you try to eat the elephant all at once. From a habits and a behavior standpoint, and even from a daily execution standpoint, you actually want to have smaller and smaller goals than you're comfortable with. As an example, if I'm trying to write a book, that may be a big 10x goal, like to write a book and sell 1 million copies as an example. But if I'm actually writing the book on a daily basis, I should make my daily goals smaller and easier than I feel comfortable with. So maybe I know my capability is that I could write 2,000 great words a day, but my goal should actually be just to write 200 words because I know I can do that. I know I can commit to that. And ultimately, when it comes to eating the frog or even eating the elephant one bite at a time, you want to make it so easy, so doable. So you want to like think big but commit small, if that makes sense, or at least commit small on a daily basis, so you can actually be making those investments regularly in your future self. By making investments, I mean actually making progress. If you can actually just jump in and actually write those 200 words for me, for example, then not only will I get momentum and confidence, but I'll be making progress, which will build my commitment, build my confidence, and over time I'll have bigger and bigger momentum. The problem that most people have is that their high-level goals are too small and their daily goals are too big. So you actually want to reverse that. You want to have massive long-term goals, but small daily goals. You want to have few daily goals, and you want to have them small enough so that you can actually commit to them, knock them out, and do them consistently so that you can create momentum. You can actually do it day by day, make progress. So that's actually a fundamental key. Massive long-term goal, very small daily goals, and few daily goals so that you can actually make regular progress. Most people have the opposite. They've got small long-term goals and they try to accomplish too much in a day, and because they're trying to eat too much of the elephant in one day, often they just don't even try because there's a million reasons not to just jump in because they're trying to bite off more than they can chew. One last thought is that small goals are more competitive. Most people, again, don't have a big 10x vision of their future self. Instead, most people are essentially in psychology world, we call it memetics, but most people want the same thing because of culture. Most people want social media likes. Most people are caught up in the thick of thin things. They're pursuing just getting by rather than becoming wealthy, as an example. Because most people have lower level goals from an evolutionary standpoint, and this is something that Darwin said, he said that the competition is fiercest, where people are trying for the same thing. And once you 10x your goal and start thinking in 10x terms, not only will you be immediately required to become more selective in what you do and let go of your lesser goals, those things that used to be interesting or meaningful or important to you now no longer can be, because you've now committed to a 10x future in one specific area. But also, because you've committed 10x to a certain area, you've now walked away from 95+% of the competition, because most of those people are just certainly not thinking in those realms. And so now that you're thinking in those realms, you can start learning at that level, acting at that level, and finding processes at that level, which will then take your life in a totally different direction than the average normal way of doing things. So I hope that helps when it comes to how to start imagining and start thinking 10x. Which area would you want to 10x is the first question to ask. And if you were to prioritize which area to go 10x, once you actually recognize your highest priority, you've got to then ask yourself, are you willing to let go of the other things you're doing right now in order to go big in this one, maybe two areas max? And that's it. So hope this helps. My name is Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Please like the video. Please subscribe down below. You can get access to a free Future Self Millionaire course, or even get a free link to a Gap and Gain free Kindle. So talk to you later.